Alright guys, today we're going to be looking at a video about To Catch a Predator. We're going to be looking at what these guys that were caught on NBC's To Catch a Predator are up to today. We're going to look at what they're doing post-life after jail. And I'd like to thank Tix for doing all the hard work in researching what these guys have been doing. I'm just going to be adding a little bit of narration, so this video is all my own. Thanks, Tix.
Can I have a kiss first?
Well, let's talk first. We just got here.
You're a pretty prolific chatter there.
Put your hands on your back.
Yes, sir.
During his 5-year incarceration, he wrote a book. I have no idea what the book is about or how acclaimed it is.
Lauren's book is about a man that was
He's also a current active YouTuber. He has
enlisted into the army, has PTSD, and then later molests children. It's not a very good read.
Clothing on eBay. A link to his channel is in the description.
She was wanting me to come up here and see her so bad, and I didn't want to disappoint her. I wasn't going to do nothing.
He was jailed. When incarcerated, he wrote a letter to the judge asking if he could be released early, given that he felt he had learned his lesson. In the same letter, he also requested that a personal hot tub and masseuse be made available if he was made to carry out his sentence. Unsurprisingly, the judge refused all requests. In total, he served 8 years for his involvement with the show, as well as for the possession of indecent images of children. He was released in 2013 and lives at home with his mother. This guy molested his own children prior to him putting in an appearance for the show. It seems that such behaviour runs in the family, as his brother and father also molested his children. After hiding from the authorities, he was eventually caught and imprisoned. He was never released and died a painful death whilst incarcerated. His death was from natural causes.
I like how I'm leaving in all of the Cappening Channel's music in their original videos.
At the time of editing, he is still incarcerated.
Actually, Jeremy Todd West has now been released from prison.
This one is also still in prison and will not be seeing freedom anytime soon. His sentence, 25 years.
You seem concerned about seeing those TV shows of people getting caught. Have you watched those shows?
No, sir.
Because you're about to be on one.
He died in prison after he stopped taking his medication. He avoided facing child porn charges due to his death, and his family received a payout from the insurance deal.
I have a compulsion just for younger women.
Donald Morrison actually has dialysis, is living with his mother still in Florida, and is not in good health. He suffers from jock itch.
He served several years in prison. After his release, he secured a job
For
as
a brief time, Meat Rocket actually had his own
acquired
YouTube
during
channel
his
where he
incarceration.
would live
His mother,
stream
a
and
prosecutor,
flick us
represented
the
him in
bird.
I didn't know I sent that one.
He served 1 year in prison. After his release, he managed to cure himself of a meth habit. He now worked with his family.
You're naked, there's a 14-year-old girl, you've got Cool Whip.
He lost his job at a fire alarm company where he worked with his dad. He was also deported back to Thailand.
Marvin was actually sent back to Trinidad, and he is allowed to have a Facebook account there.
His status as a sex offender was made public in his home country.
I learned my lesson the first time.
Obviously not.
He had prior convictions for molesting
Kevin
his niece.
Westerbeck actually
He
has
served
phone
10
sex
years
now
in prison
with
following this encounter with the show.
somebody he
was
believes
released
is
in
named
2016.
Dorothy.
You ever tried to kill or harm yourself?
Yes,
When was the last time?
6 months ago. Took 7 different bottles of pills and drank about 3/5 of alcohol. I even tried to slit my wrist.
Are you feeling depressed or suicidal right now?
Yes.
He served a short prison sentence and is rumoured to be working with his sister. He has
One
epilepsy,
thing
palsy,
Tix needs
and
to figure
clinical
out is
depression.
what all
He was taking
Jeff
a cocktail of
Stacy's keys were
psychiatric
for.
drugs, and 6 months prior to filming, had attempted to take his own life.
Seth?
What?
Why did you come here today?
Because I'm an idiot.
This wasn't just some fantasy. You got in a car and drove to this house.
You're right.
An Italian restaurant owner who had, prior to his encounter with the show, been convicted of possessing indecent images of children. Once filming ended, he suffered the loss of his family, job, and eventually his life. His encounter with the show landed him in prison, where he died in 2009.
You've had sex with men before. That happens.
I'm not doing anything.
He had prior convictions for rape and assault. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison following his encounter with the show, suffering horrendous physical and sexual abuse as a child.
Jean-Pierre Michael Damien Wiltsey Weary is actually getting legal help from somebody in Buffalo as we speak.
Victims of child abuse.
He wants the decoy to smell the marijuana he brought.
Is there a hidden camera somewhere?
I have it on good authority that Michael Lubrano's parents are actually looking for an African grey flying around their home.
No.
He indicates to me he's deaf.
During his online chats, he rejected a 15-year-old decoy in favour of a 12-year-old one. He served 9 months in prison. Once released, he decided to stay in Florida.
Well, come here.
He tried to run but was tackled by the police. He suffered facial injuries as a result. He had prior convictions for molesting and abusing his own children. After his encounters with the show, he was sentenced to 15 years. He is still in prison.
Oh, crap.
He served several years in prison and was released in 2013.
John Adam Daniels actually works in a Kit Kat factory
as a
now.
sex offender after moving to Alabama.
World, please forgive me. I know what the law says.
He served a short prison sentence and is now a lifelong registered sex offender. However, he avoids complying with the terms of the register by moving to and living in countries where such conditions do not apply. He spends time in Belize, Antigua and Guatemala. He travels with his wife and enjoys his life working as an aid worker.
Sir, am I going to be in trouble for this?
He was granted bail, but was soon arrested following filming after he exposed himself to an 8-year-old girl. He was remanded for several years before being convicted. He was released into the custody of his parents in 2014.
We're doing a story on adults eating children, and since you have your child here, I'm not going to pursue this.
You come here. Let go of the child.
He was sentenced to 5 years following his encounter with the show. His child was made to move from the family home, although his wife decided to stand by him. He has a job in IT.
Good now. Wow.
We're in a role-playing chat room, dude.
But that doesn't stop detectives from catching him.
2 words, role-playing chat room, dude.
His conviction following this encounter with the show was eventually overturned, although he has a long criminal record which involves robbery, violence and sexual assault involving minors. There is a YouTube channel dedicated
That YouTube
to
channel belongs to Crestfallen, and you should like and subscribe.
Himself also has a YouTube channel, and links to both can be found in the description. He was sentenced to 5 years. He is currently retired and living in California.
Stop. Right there. Put your hands behind your back.
Several years ago, Daniel Allen was convicted of willfully, maliciously, and repeatedly stalking a woman, causing her to fear for her safety and the safety of her family.
He was sentenced to 3 years in prison following his encounter with the show, and he died whilst serving his sentence.
It's like I got sucked in almost because she goes, "Oh, I really wanted to meet you."
I want to go for a ride. I take her for a ride. I mean, nothing. You know, I ain't mean no harm trying to do nothing. I shouldn't be. They was looking on it as in a bad note. Like the way it actually looked.
He has a history of criminal behaviour and has been arrested many times. After filming ended, he served 5 years in prison. He has struggled with homelessness since his release.
Well, yeah, he's underage. Yes, I see the age. Father, son. Father, son. Yes. You're talking about fathers having sex with their sons. You talk about this like it's some sort of hobby.
Before his trial, he decided to stop taking his medication. The decision killed him, and thus he avoided facing prosecution and prison. He would have been charged for possessing indecent images of children and molestation, as well as the charges brought forward by the show.
Sir, are you going to hurt me?
I'm not going to hurt you.
Is anyone in the house going to hurt me?
Nobody's going to hurt you.
Am I going to go to jail?
He served time in prison following his encounter with the show, and, following his release, was arrested in 2013 for the attempted rape of a minor.
Why is there like an open house going on today?
No, well, there is sort of an open house going on, but it's sort of a different.
Tix, he did an amazing job picking out all this music.
Has since been released. He has described the show as a scam. In addition, this guy has the mind virus and believes that 9/11 was an inside job. He admits to being skeptical of the government in general and possibly denies that humans have stepped foot on the moon.
Because I've successfully taught school for 23 years.
23 years.
He avoided prosecution following his appearance on the show. In the later months of his life, fans of the show contacted him and bullied him into performing gay
Nobody
phone
bullied
sex and other
him.
humiliating
His sons
things.
contacted
He was
him,
seemingly
and
very
they had
compliant,
phone
willing to
sex.
perform for fans.
Stan
and even
later
released videos
died
of himself
after
playing
his
with
sons
his
broke
own
up with
fecal
him.
matter. Unfortunately, he was so willing and prolific that the internet is now home to many of his videos. For the most part, however, this creature is anonymous and ignored.
Pete, just for you. I loved you first. You have a special place in my heart.
Oh, Pete.
I came here to be for her, possibly sexually. She told me she was 13.
He served 4 years for his part in the show. After his release, he moved into a nice house in Cincinnati. He is suffering from terrible health and has type 2 diabetes. He used to be a swinger, but not anymore.
Tix, awesome music.
He served 5 years in prison. He worked as a salesman after his release, but failed to register as a sex offender and was subsequently arrested again in 2013. He currently lives in Maryland.
Didn't you intend to have sex with the girl?
I guess you could say I did, yes, sir. Okay. Goes before a judge and bail is set.
He was sentenced to 24 years in prison. He is currently still alive, but is reportedly struggling to cope with life in prison.
Alright guys, thanks for watching my totally original video.